And we're back here on the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. Just wanted to thank everybody for listening, and just want to make sure you check us out Monday nights on the Podcast Radio Network. We truly appreciate it if you do. If you don't, we've always got the downloads available on our various download outlets, and starting with the Tangent Bound Network, the ESO Network, the Gonna Geek Network, Mixcloud, iTunes, Stitcher, and also podcast.com and Google Play. If you do, we've got extra episodes of all the great stuff from a number of our Pop Culture Cosmos shows that from the family that we have, that we'd like to go ahead and share with you on the back end of those as well. So we're talking NBA a little bit right here. I know we've been a little bit of a sports theme the past 3 weeks with some segments in the sports world. I hope everyone out there has enjoyed it. We've covered the NHL with Charles Smith, and then he came back on talking the early thoughts on the Super Bowl itself last week. But we are now talking some NBA because we've reached the half-point way in that as well. And who better to talk to the NBA than Anthony? Appreciate you coming on the show. It's Anthony Barbarin. I truly appreciate you coming on the show and talking some NBA with us today.
No problem, man. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, it's great indeed. As you can see on the live feed, if people watch the video who have watched the video many times, they can see in the corner the Los Angeles Lakers banner that hangs high in my office. Which unfortunately right now is maybe a sign of shame for many people, the way they're playing lately. So, in fact, coming off their worst loss in franchise history recently, which is not too good, but tides may turn one day. But it's great to see your team, as someone who has lived in the Los Angeles area for many years. It's great to see your Clippers doing so well at the present time the past few years, and that the tides have indeed turned as far as your franchise is concerned.
Yeah, actually, that loss by the Lakers did cause me a little bit of pain. It took the record away from the Clippers, who had set it a few years ago at 48 points as the hardest defeat for the Lakers.
Fair enough indeed. Well, they've lost their last 13, 14 games against Dallas Mavericks. So now I think that's something that's in their head. Plus, I know they had some travel issues getting there because of the weather out there. But no excuse. You don't lose by 49. So, but it is what it is. But moving on to some different teams as far as it's concerned, it's definitely the NBA season indeed. It's well underway. It's past the halfway point, and it's now time to start talking some serious things in regards to who to look out for this NBA season. So first off, Anthony, I want to ask you real quick, your thoughts on who the MVP is at this point in time.
At this point in time, I would have to go with James Harden.
Excellent choice.
The points he's putting up, the assists he's putting up. His team is recently, I think they're on a bit of a slide. They're about 5. I think they're about 5-5 in their last 10. But they went on that run where they were winning a bunch of games in a row. They're third in the Western Conference right now, and he's spearheading that. So I think he's the MVP.
Excellent choice. Yes. Because I know a lot of people have said, Russell Westbrook, who's currently averaging a triple-double, which hasn't been done since Oscar Robinson. But his team, while it is playing above the level of 500, is not quite at the level that James Harden's doing for tremendous high-octane Houston offense that has done extremely well and well above expectations.
Yeah. I think Russell Westbrook is a good choice if you want it to go that way as well. From what he has around him, he has a lot of talent, but the team is not put together and built around him to complement his game. But I think if you wanted to add in the aspect of defense, where James Harden's kind of lacking in that area, as reason to go Russell Westbrook, then it's a legitimate choice.
Fair enough indeed, and I could see that being a very if it stands, if keeps on progressing the way it does, and they end up at the season in a similar fashion as they are now, as far as the state for both those players and those teams, I see it being a very close race indeed for voting for the MVP this year. But definitely, both players should be lauded for their statistics and what they're doing for their team. With James. Obviously as well, he'll be the first person, if he, as far as possibly, leading the team, the NBA in scoring and also assists since Tiny Archibald as well. So that's no small feat as well. What is your thoughts on maybe, the most surprising team in each conference? Is there one team in each conference that really stands out to you? So that's like, hey, wow, they're doing a lot better than what I really thought they would be doing.
The most surprising teams to me, the Eastern Conference, they actually kind of leveled out a bit. I thought there were teams that would be doing better, and there were some teams early on that looked like they were, doing really well, and they kind of tapered off. In the Western Conference, for me in the West, it's probably the Rockets. I didn't think that they would be able to be where they are right now. I thought they would be, fourth, fifth, sixth, but third. I didn't think they would be third. Eastern Conference, it's kind of the same guys. Looks like to me. There's no big jump. There's some teams that I thought would do better. Indiana, I thought would be better. Atlanta, I thought actually would be a better team than what they are now. I think they're missing a wing score, which is really holding them back. But for the most part, the biggest surprise to me is the Houston Rockets.
Fair enough, indeed. Would either Indiana or because Houston actually is also my most surprising team as well. Would Indiana also fall in the category of your most disappointing team? Because for me, the most disappointing team right now in the league would be Portland, because of after how well they played last year as compared to what they're playing today.
My most disappointing team. It's not all completely about play. Sometimes it's about front office moves, and they add to the disappointment. Portland, I think, overachieved last year. So I know a lot of people see that as kind of a big collapse, but I think they really, really overachieved. In the playoffs last year, they got two major injuries that propelled them into the second round. So I think expectations were high for them, but they weren't. They were kind of lofty for what they're capable of doing. I think they're missing a lot of pieces, especially they need front court help. I would say my most disappointing team, with the talent they have as young as they are, Minnesota. I thought Minnesota would be a better team. I just think they have talent at every position, and they're not maximizing it. I thought with Tom Thibodeau that he would at least propel them to play hard every night and be in close games and be able to pull those games out.
I can't blame you, because when you have a lineup that sports Zach LaVine, Anthony Wiggins, and also as well Karl Anthony Towns, you're thinking to yourself, man, that's a pretty good starting three to start off with.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, a move that they have to make is they have to sell some of that young talent. I know you kind of get enamored with having all that talent on the same team, but you have to kind of get rid of some of that to get you to get stabilizing forces and veterans on the team that can still play the game. It's one as like with your Lakers, they have veteran players on the bench, but they're not at a point in their career where they're contributing to the cause.
Tell me about it. With them, I see a lot of issues. I mean, they've got some nice young talent. The Deng Mozgov signing still hurt me to this day, and also the fans that are actually paying for the seats. And then also, you've got Lou Williams, who's a nice contributor off the bench, one of the highest scoring guards off the bench, but yeah, him and Nick Young, I see them as valuable trade assets coming up very soon. And that leads me to as far as the wonderful world of trading players, and as far as, because the trade deadline also comes up very, very soon in a few weeks. I think February 20th, 21st, in that area, the trade deadline. And with that trade deadline, always some interesting names. And I know in the New York media, there's been a lot of speculation as far as Will or Carmelo Anthony, who currently has a no trade clause, but has said if the team really doesn't want him, he'll waive that. Is Carmelo really actually going to be traded, or is there any other players that you feel are really, really going to be on the hot seat that are going to be moving to a contender sometime soon?
I don't think so. I don't think any big pieces will be moved. I think in the Carmelo situation, if he's going to be moved, I don't think it'll be this year. I don't think this is a team who's primed to really make the playoffs or to be a factor in the playoffs. I think if he is moved, he'll be moved in the offseason, where they can kind of better navigate what they're getting back from him and move that into some positive assets for that franchise. And he'll have to be in the mindset that he's no longer quote unquote Carmelo, and find a viable team for him to go to in the offseason where he feels like he can contribute to a team with an actual opportunity to compete.
Yeah. Fair enough, indeed. So are there players maybe on your radar that you think might be shopped and might be moved? Because, back and forth over the first few months, there's been some players that have been mentioned, shopped around. I know Kyle Korver moving to Cleveland was thought to be a big boost for them, but it hasn't turned out that way so far. And I know we'll touch on Cleveland here in a minute, but are there any trade targets you're looking to see moved? Because you said no big players will actually be moved.
Yeah, I think it'll be small players. Like you said, I think the other day LeBron was talking about how they need another playmaker. And immediately people went to, he wants Carmelo and he wants D Wade. And it's like, I think what he really wants is exactly what he said. Somebody who can break down the defense and make plays for other people. And right now, he's the only one on his team who can do that. Kyrie can, but he's more of a scoring mentality. So it's putting a lot of pressure on him. I think somebody small, in that regard, an afterthought on a team where you're not really thinking of this player, but he's moved to another team, and all of a sudden you see what he can do. I heard about the Clippers were looking into PJ Tucker. Vucevic is somebody I could see being moved.
Yeah. He's actually done very well in a backup role after being for years the starting center for the Orlando Magic. He's still doing very well in a backup role, but obviously someone who started that many years, who's still relatively young and wants to contribute, wants to probably stay forward in a starting position. Even though it's worked out for players like Enes Kanter, who went over to a team like Oklahoma City after starting for years at Utah, and now is still becoming a major factor off the bench.
Yeah. What I would like to see happen, which I don't want to get too much into like the fantasy aspect of what could and what couldn't happen. I would like to see some of these teams that are holding on to their teeth. Opportunity to compete. Memphis, like we were talking about Minnesota. I would like to see something like a package of a young Chris Dunn and Zach LaVine to Memphis to maybe get a Mike Conley, who we just signed that monster contract. But you can see a guy like that turning that franchise, and all of a sudden they start winning games toward the end of the season to build for next year. And then Memphis could start to move forward in a new era. The Lakers, I would like to see Philadelphia finally get rid of some of those big men that they have a log jam at the center position.
Yes, indeed.
And they have no backcourt. And I understand that they're high draft picks that they don't want to give away for nothing. But you got to move some of those. You have to move at least one of those guys. I would like to see maybe, as for your Lakers, maybe like a Jordan Clarkson and a pick to get a Jahlil Okafor to
Yeah.
start building an entire roster instead of having one position or one area of the team in a good position, but you're lacking in other areas.
I don't blame you a bit. But yeah, because they've gone to that alternating style because due to injuries and basically, like you said, to Jahlil Okafor, and of course Joel Embiid, who even though he plays every other game, is still just doing a tremendous job, and they know that's their future right there with the franchise because he is just such a tremendous player playing this year as far as is concerned. His stats are for the amount of minutes, the limited amount of minutes he's in because of previous foot injuries have held him back for the 2 years have been astonishing, and he just we talked about the surprising teams. The Philadelphia 76ers being a surprising team where they at due to him
Right.
is it's definitely indeed. Oh my gosh, Joel Embiid, he's going to be as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be a star to come. Because if anybody out there, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I'm just agreeing with you. I'm just saying, yes,
Yeah,
he's on his way.
if you don't get a chance to see him, I'm going to tell everybody out there, get the NBA League Pass because he himself is worth alone the NBA League Pass indeed because he's such a tremendous he's got such a tremendous future because of what he's doing right now. So we've gone over the MVPs, surprising and disappointing teams, who to look for as far as trade targets are concerned, and you mentioned real briefly about LeBron. And you and I both, as seasoned NBA fans, have seen this before. LeBron complaining about something here, complaining about something there, complaining about something there, here and there. Yes, they do need another playmaker in Cleveland, but there is no one, in my opinion, as far as it's concerned, that's close enough in the East to touch them with or without another added piece. And LeBron, I understand he's looking for even better formation than he has before, but the team he has still leads the East by a long shot and looks to be like the premier contender for the title from the East. And whereas in the West, um, you know, Golden State is just doing tremendous job. Those top four, when they click, you and I have both seen in recent weeks, especially recently with them dominating three of the top teams in the NBA, that if those top four are clicking between as far as Steph Curry, as far as Kevin Durant, as far as Klay Thompson, as far as Draymond Green, if those four are clicking, it's lights out for each of them. But we haven't talked about probably the least publicized team that's great out there. That's the San Antonio Spurs, who've done a great job indeed and play very, very well on the road. Do they have a chance, or does anyone really stand a chance? Is it a foregone conclusion that the Warriors and also as well the Cavaliers are going to meet up in the NBA Finals?
For me, if you talk about Cleveland in the East, barring a injury to LeBron, I think they're the favorites in the East. I don't see anybody being able to beat them. I think
no matter how cranky he gets.
No. When it gets to the playoffs, he'll dominate all the other teams unless he gets. I think they can beat anybody without Kyrie. I think they can beat anybody in the East without Kevin Love. But when it comes down to it, as long as LeBron's on the court, they'll win the East. So I think I think Boston will give them a good series where they'll win, maybe a couple of games. Same thing with Toronto. But if they won't push them to a game 7, it'll get to 6 games. They'll beat them, and they'll be waiting in the Eastern Conference in the final.
Pretty much like last season.
Yeah, Golden State, I think could face a little bit more trouble because of the way their team is constructed. Like you saw early in the year, and it was early in the year where San Antonio dominated them because of. And I think if they face teams with too much size that can slow them down and pound the ball down low, I think they can run into some trouble. But if they face a team like Houston, who wants to run up and down, they can't run up and down with Golden State. Golden State will blow them out running up and down because they're the best at it. But if you have the team and the players down low to be physical with them and to attack the basket and get close shots at the rim, then I think Golden State can face a little bit more trouble. I know, with the 4 players that they have, you kind of go back to what they were last year, but they've lost so much. And also with that, I think, you start to talk about when games get close, who wants to be that guy? Because for a lot last year, when you go 73-9, you don't have to really face that. Who's going to take the last shot? Who's going to take over at the end of the game? Because everybody's getting blown out. But you saw it in the finals. It's like, okay, we cut the head off the snake. Who's the next guy? Or who's going to take the shot? Who's going to put the team on their shoulders? So I think Golden State is still the favorite to come out of the West, no question. But I think they can face a little bit more adversity. And I think the way teams might play them could be a little bit more beat up when they get to the finals in Cleveland.
It could be very challenging indeed, because the Spurs have virtually almost no one realizes they're only 3 games back right now, currently behind Golden State, and they've got a tremendous record themselves. So they can definitely compete with Golden State. But for me, I see that offense just, if they're flowing as well as they flow and that those threes start hitting, my goodness, it's artistry. And as far as it's concerned, when Steve Kerr has that offense really clicking for him. So if their top four hold up, because they are very, their attrition because of their roster, because in order to sign Kevin Durant, has been a little bit impeded, and I'm not sure that what they can do really as far as adding pieces to that, because they're limited as far as what the salary cap is concerned, just like Cleveland is. So it'll be interesting indeed. I tell you what, it's just been a great pleasure having you on in the NBA. It's just been a tremendous pleasure for me as a lifelong NBA fan as well. It's just great indeed, and hopefully if you want, I'd like to be able to talk again as far as during the playoffs, so we can see how everything's worked out.
Absolutely. I would love to come back on.
That's awesome. Appreciate it, indeed. So that's, again, Anthony Barbarin, as far as the man in the know in regards to the NBA. If you have any questions for him or for any of us as far as the pop culture cosmos is concerned regarding the NBA or any other topic we cover, just give us a shout out. Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, at Pop Culture Cosmo on Twitter, and also as well popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Thanks again so much, Anthony, for your time. We truly appreciate it, and we can't wait to have you back on again on the Pop Culture Cosmos show.
All right. Thank you for having me. I look forward to it.
To me as well. Appreciate it.